Hi there, everyone. Welcome to our talk, which I've just found out is the last one of the whole pet fair. Hopefully, we can finish it off in style. So, we're going to talk. Firstly, I'm Kelvin, the CEO and founding director of Kiwi Kitchens, and this is Melinda, product education and development manager for us. This topic here is something that's the both of us are incredibly passionate about the importance of a high meat based diet. So um, we'll get right into that now. And so first of all, it's really for us, it's about the dogs and it's about the cats. So I just want to share some pictures with you. Can we move it? It's not moving. Got it.
That's
Here we go. Sorry, it was a bit slow. Um, just the pictures of our cats and dogs to tell you the story about how we got here. So, Zach and Alice, those two border collies that you see on the slide there, um, we back in about 2008, our family returned from overseas, and we wanted to have dogs and cats for our kids. We, like any expectant parent, we picked up our border collies and then thought, "My God, what are we going to feed them?" And how we're going to train them. Thankfully, we went to a trainer who was also very passionate about diets and food, and he pretty much talked to us about this topic, the importance of a high meat based diet. And we've been feeding our dogs then and then later our cats that diet ever since. And we saw the real benefits associated with it. And really for me from that point on, it was right. Now I actually need to understand why. I understand it's great for them. I can see it. I can see it in how healthy they are. And we got so many comments from people uh, just saying how beautiful our dogs and cats were, and how healthy they were looking. And so I was very much sold on this idea. I just needed to know why that was the case. And then ever since then, there's pretty much been the passion of myself and my wife, who are the owners of this business and the founders of this business, really to give back that unconditional love that our pets give us. And every day they seem to just unconditionally love us, and we just want to give it back with the best possible food we possibly can. So just on that slide there, it's Hugo and Rosie, the two little Maltese at the bottom, and that's Marty, our cat in the middle. Now Marty, we rehomed Marty about 8 years ago, and it feels that every day Marty's saying thank you to us with the affection that he gives. So it means a lot for us to be able to give back. Um, so first of all, when we were looking at this, why it's like, cats are obligate carnivores. Nobody really questions that. That means they're obliged to eat meat. They must eat meat for their health. They need to have a high meat based diet. Whereas a dog, slightly different, opportunistic carnivore. So the definition of that is, given the choice, they'll choose to eat meat. And I think anyone out there, you could actually see that if you put a piece of meat down on the ground, that's the thing they go to first of all, and that really is their real treat. That even with our dogs, I know when we're feeding them we feed them obviously a high meat based diet, but even a little piece of steak when you're cooking dinner and things like that, they love that. Um, so so from about 10 years ago, I've been exploring this idea of why the high meat based diet is so important, and come across a guy called Mark Roberts who ended up working for me in the previous company and now works for us in this company as well. And Mark was intrigued about this as well. He raced huskies, and he saw that his huskies were significantly outperforming the other race teams, and he was the only one feeding them a high meat based diet. So he's dedicated his last 10 years to this as well, doing research, and actually has gone in and just completed his PhD on this topic. Now, his PhD started from this idea that animals self select for ideal macronutrient intake. So this was some research that was conducted by Professor David Raubenheimer out of the University of Sydney. and he studied a large range of animals, and found conclusively that every single animal, apart from one, would selectively choose the most appropriate protein, fat, fiber intake for their ultimate health, and then also down to micronutrient levels as well. I've got that picture of the panda there, which I find fascinating. So the panda, which is one of his findings that he came about, that there is a certain short period window of the year where this specific bamboo grows, and the panda instinctively knows to come down and to eat that piece of bamboo, and it's what actually makes them fertile. So they instinctively know that they need to eat that plant to enable themselves to breed, which is quite incredible. Now, the one animal that actually did fail this test was actually the humans. Now, I believe that's actually to do with a lot of the marketing, but not necessarily. I think if we were left out in the wild, we would end up doing the same thing, but marketing distorts our senses. Hasn't been proven, it's just my view. So then Mark, I have to now call him Dr. Mark Roberts, since he's just got his PhD. I'm still getting used to that. But we actually wanted Mark, to be here today to do this presentation, but he's actually moving house, and he's having to move 14 of his huskies and their kennels in one day to his new house. So we probably selected the worst day of the year to be able to get him to talk. So I have to do him justice with giving a summary of his PhD. So what he did was he provided excess food to the dogs. Now, I want to be specific here. His research has just been about dogs. We are just embarking on doing similar research around the similar philosophy into cats, and we're looking at starting that in a few months. So first of all, he fed them 5 times what they would normally require to eat in a day, to understand that just given the choice of there's plentiful food around, what would they choose? Now, initially they did consume a very high level amount of food, but that declined over 10 days. And initially they actually ate a lot of fat, and a moderate amount of protein and very little carbohydrates. And as time went on, the fat content that they selectively chose declined. So really what that's telling us is that they've still got this feast or famine mentality. They don't really trust where their next feed's going to come. But once they've got confidence that it's going to, and they really want to get energy, the energy that they're choosing is fat, to give them that ultimate long-term energy. But over time, once they get confident, they actually come back to a more balanced state. So initially, they were eating 29% protein and 68% fat, which is an incredibly high level of fat. But by the end of that study, it was a more balanced approach, around 44% fat and 44% protein and 52% fat. But through the whole part of the study, they had a very, very small consumption of carbohydrates. Now it's this sort of conclusion in this study that really has formulated, our philosophies within this brand. So there's his conclusions there. Protein remains a constant, and it remains at a high level, and it's fat that they seem to regulate with their intake. The other parts of his study that he dug into was, okay, what are the negative connotations? There's a lot of negativity around fat, and what is commonly felt to be a negative in regards to fat. And the first one obviously is weight gain. What he found is, even though he was feeding his dogs, or not his dogs, his dogs and their dogs in the colony, this high level of food, none of them actually put on weight through the course of his study. He did a 10-day study, and then he did, I think it was a 35-day study. And yeah, quite an incredible conclusion there that not a lot of people probably would have expected. It is actually our belief, and we have, and it is also something we would like to dig into and study more. We believe it's actually the high level of carbohydrates that actually cause a lot of the weight gain that you see in animals and potentially humans as well. And it's because the carbohydrates, it's like a big sugar hit type thing, and it's hard for the animal to regulate. And then if they don't use that energy, it gets stored as fat. And then the second finding was around pancreatitis. So the commonly held view is that pancreatitis, that high levels of fat are a cause of pancreatitis. He conclusively has proven that is not the case. And in actual fact, it might be the opposite. It's potentially could be the carbohydrates that are causing this. Now, I would like to put caution on this. If your dog does have pancreatitis, you still certainly need to, be careful around the diet, and take blood tests through the process. But don't just blindly go into feeding a high fat-based diet if your dog has pancreatitis. There does need to be caution around that. But what he did conclude is that a high fat-based diet does not cause pancreatitis, which really is going to change the way that vets do actually see this disease. So really this research, and it's been an ongoing research for a long period of time, even though Mark's PhD just finished 6 months ago. We started this company, or this brand, we first launched it in 2017. We pretty much took on that philosophy back then. We firmly believe that dogs and cats should be eating a high meat-based diet with minimal carbohydrates, and then ideally high levels of omega-3. So within our brand, that's exactly what you'll see in every single product that we have out there. We have a very broad range of products, but in each and every one of them, when we've started the formulation of those diets, we've started with that philosophy in mind, and we will not deviate from that. It's what we are, what we passionately believe in. So now I'll hand this over to Melinda to go through some more details about our products and philosophy.
Great, thanks, Calvin. So Calvin has shared our nutritional philosophy being that a high meat diet is best. But what does that actually mean when it comes to feeding our pets? And what does a high meat diet look like? So when we're talking about meat, we're not just talking about muscle. We recommend utilising as many nutritional components as possible. Now, in terms of labelling products, there are some differences between nutritional requirements and labelling requirements. And often, a lot of the time, things do just come under a generic meat label. But we're actually including as much as we possibly can, because we know that every component plays a really important part. So that's from things like skin, tendons, connective tissue, through to your muscle meat, your fat, your organs, bone. Everything is included where possible, because they all naturally work together to build a really balanced meal. So if we break that down a little bit further. So if we look at protein is the basis of all tissues, muscles, bones, tendons, ligaments, and it's essential for growth. Protein also makes up things like enzymes, hormones, and antibodies. So therefore, it's needed to build and repair organs and tissues. It sends messages between organs, and it can be and play an important role with combating disease. Protein also helps build long, strong muscles, and a soft and shiny coat as well. And dogs and cats actually use about 35% of their dietary protein to maintain their skin and coat health. Now, protein's made up of individual building blocks. These are called amino acids, and they kind of knit together like a necklace. And there's non-essential amino acids, and there's also essential amino acids. So the non-essential ones are the ones that the body can create. The essential ones are those that really need to be provided in the diet. The body's not able to make those, and therefore they must be available. Now, there's lots of sources of protein. Meat is a great source of protein, and particularly good for our pets, because typically it will provide all of the essential amino acids that they require. So moving on to fat, Calvin has touched on this obviously with Mark's research. Now, we know that fat is vital for health. It has a really important role to play. And I agree with Calvin, fat's gotten quite a bad rap over the years. And several decades ago, it sort of became touted that if you're overweight or you're fat, you're carrying excess body fat, it must be because you're eating too much fat. And then the whole low fat movement sort of came through, and everything went low fat, which was high sugar. And what did we see post that was obesity actually rose, and levels of things like heart disease, type 2 diabetes actually went through the roof. So the research is swinging back around now and becoming more aware of how those nutritional components work. So when we're talking about fat in terms of pet food, we're talking about the good fats, like polyunsaturated fatty acids. So we are talking about omega-3, we're talking about omega-6, and they have some different roles that they play. Omega-3 is really important in terms of reducing inflammation. It plays a crucial part in the nervous system, whereas omega-6 has lots of different roles. It's important with brain health, but it's also essential to maintain a healthy skin and coat. So looking at our omega-3s, EPA and DHA, those are deemed essential fatty acids for both dogs and cats. So that's that essential word again, like the amino acids. That means that they must have them in their diet. The important thing to also recognise is that they need these omega-3s from animal sources. So while both cats and dogs can fulfill their omega-6 requirements from both plants or animals, they can't do that with their omega-3s. So humans can. We can convert omega-3s that comes from plants into a form of EPA, but cats and dogs aren't able to do this. Well, dogs can do it to a small degree, but we don't believe to enough level, and cats actually lack one of the enzymes to do this process at all. So really important that they're getting those omega-3s from an animal source. In terms of quantity, it's not quite so much quantity that's important, but the ratio between these two, and we are going to touch on that a little bit later. And there's also lots of new research coming out around versions of fat, and can there be healthier forms of fat? Some research that was done a couple of years ago is showing that grass-fed animals actually have a healthier form of fat. So that's really exciting for us here in New Zealand with our grass-fed produce available. And the research showed that a particular type of lipid was higher in the pasture-fed beef than the grain-fed beef. And in addition, the concentrations of omega-3 fatty acids were also higher. So the important thing about this is that there's beneficial effects of these particular dietary lipids, and that's in relation to different illnesses, inflammatory processes, things like heart disease, even cancer. So we're really excited to actually see where this research goes and what further research will be completed, because this will support and sort of lead into supporting the importance of having healthy fats in the diet. So also in a high meat diet is organs. This is one of my favourite things to talk about. I love organs as part of the high meat diet. I think of them as the multivitamin component. They contain a wealth of vitamins and minerals, and they also provide a lot of nutrients that aren't found in muscle meat. So really, really important, and they really assist greatly with balancing the diet by providing those nutrients. Some commonly fed organs that you might see, things like liver, spleen, lung, kidney, heart. Now, while heart's not a secreting organ, so it's typically considered more a muscle meat, it does provide really, really good levels of taurine, and that's really important. It's an essential amino acid, particularly for cats. Liver is one of the most nutrient-dense foods available, and it's particularly high in vitamin A. And then if we look at lung and kidney, lung's really high in iron, and both of them have really high levels of vitamin B as well. I also just wanted to touch briefly on bone. Sometimes I see some concern with pet parents about the use of bone in products. I don't know if it's a belief that perhaps they're scraps, the carcass is being put in, the waste product is being put into the food, and that it's not good quality. Now, when we use bone, we're doing it from a nutritional point of view, because it's a really great natural source of calcium and phosphorus, which are really important minerals for lots of different reasons, but particularly for skeletal growth and joint development. So we know that using bone or bone powder is a great way of providing a really bioavailable source of these minerals. So why is good nutrition so important? Well, the research shows that a lot of health issues for both dogs and cats and humans is inflammation. And it's really becoming more and more apparent. And, this makes sense if we think about, our itchy dogs, our allergy dogs. We think of, an inflammatory process with that, even digestive upsets, but even things like diabetes, heart disease, cancer. The research is showing quite a strong link now between inflammation and those health problems. So, what can we do to reduce those levels of inflammation? So one of the core causes of inflammation is food. And the secret lies in those omegas that we spoke of earlier and the presence of highly processed carbohydrates. So ideally, the ratio between omega 6 to 3 should be an ideal ratio would be between 2 to 1 through to 4 to 1. Now, that's because one has an inflammatory process, which is important for things like healing, and the other has the anti-inflammatory process, which is important for keeping inflammation levels down. So the balance is really important between those two. Now, in a low meat pet food, typically that ratio can be as high as 20 to 1. So there's just, too much of inflammatory properties in that ratio. And interestingly enough, AAFCO actually set the level at anything up to 30 to 1 as being acceptable. Now, this could explain why there are so many problems and so many health conditions with different cats and dogs when they're eating some diets that, are coming up high in those levels. So we've spoken about the problems that can be caused by poor nutrition. So what are the potential benefits of feeding a high meat-based diet? Now, a lot of this is anecdotal, but more and more research is coming out to support all of these things. But at the end of the day, for us, it's about having healthier, happier pets. And we see it and we hear about it. We hear that there's a better coat. We hear that allergies have often decreased or been removed, improved digestion, smaller stools, better smelling stools, which is a bonus for the pet parents, dental problems, and there's even evidence coming out that it helps things like animals that are dealing with cancer just by keeping those inflammation levels down. So, talking about promoting a high meat diet, it's also really important to remember that the quality of the base product is quite a vital part. So, here in New Zealand, and I don't want to skite, but this is our back door. And we're lucky enough to have this on our doorstep. So, this is the norm for farming our produce in New Zealand. It's not the exception. So, our beef, our lamb, and our venison are all grass fed, and that's for their entire lives. And they're freely roaming in beautiful pastures. So that means that they're naturally lower in pathogens, as well as living happier lives, which is a good thing for us. Our chicken are also freely roaming. That's done in a controlled environment, and that's to help prevent disease. And then our fish, well, we're surrounded by a beautiful ocean here in New Zealand, and we also have highly sustainable fisheries that provide us fantastic fish product. So we actually consider ourselves pretty lucky to live in this beautiful country with all this produce and all this beautiful scenery. And so based on, the nutritional philosophy that Calvin spoke about and these beautiful products that, this produce that is on our doorstep, we've now carried that through and obviously to our range of products for both cats and dogs. And so we've got quite a broad range, as Calvin mentioned. Our leading product is our freeze-dried raw. So this is in a dinner format. It is a raw product. It's 100% raw. There is no heat applied. And it's freeze-dried with the moisture removed, obviously, to make it shelf-stable and convenient to use. It also has the added benefit of superfoods in it because it's a raw product. We can put wonderful things like New Zealand green mussel, which also has some huge health benefits and anti-inflammatory properties. It is heat sensitive for those particular properties, so we pop it in our raw products to protect that and make sure that that's available to the pets. Alongside that, we've got the superfood boosters. So this is the same formula. It's the freeze-dried dinners that are raw, but it's put into a powder format to make it easy for those parents that want to add a bit of nutrition into the bowl. They might not be looking at a full shift. The dinners can also be used as a meal mixer or a topper, but some people find that that powder, they can just add it to their existing meal and know that they're getting an extra pop of nutrition that's high meat, and with the benefit of those superfoods as well. We also have air-dried range and canned range for cats and dogs. They're very similar in composition in terms of the ingredients. They're both high meat, 93%. It really just depends whether people like to feed a wet diet or a dry diet. And a lot of people interchange them and actually feed them together as well. With our air dry food, I always like to remind people that it is a gently air dried product, which means it is exposed to low temperatures over a long period of time, and that's done to really lock in those nutrients and protect them. But of course, there is a heat process as part of it. So this is a cooked product. We want to be really transparent about it, but it's done in a very careful way to protect the nutrients. And then we've also got a raw frozen dinners for cats, and this is the more traditional raw mince grind. We've got some beautiful dog rolls or chubs. Again, 93% meat, and they're a beautiful product that's cooked very gently in a water bath, actually, again, to keep those temperatures low and protect those nutrients. And then we also have a range of freeze-dried treats, because who doesn't like treats? Again, this is a full raw range, freeze-dried for both cats and dogs. We have single ingredient like liver and heart. We also have some beautiful meat recipe blends in there as well, some training treats. And, we believe that treats shouldn't mean junk. So why not have a treat that is super tasty, your pet's super excited about, it's a high reward for them, but it's also really good for them. It's actually healthy. It's providing them with a pop of nutrition. And so, we think that's a really good idea. And the great thing about all of these products with the high meat content is that you can pop them in to any bowl. So yes, they're designed as whole meals, but sometimes it's just about reducing some carbohydrate that's existing in the meal already and bringing that high meat content in where possible. So any of them can be used in addition to existing food as an added boost of nutrition into any bowl. Now, we obviously love sharing the benefits of a high meat diet, and we want to do that with as many pet parents as possible. And I think our product range really reflects that. But we're also really passionate about education. And we know that there's a lot of pet parents out there that want to know more. They've got questions, they want to delve in a little bit deeper. And we've been working on ways that we can help provide further education to those people that have got more questions and want to learn more about how to look after their pets' nutrition. So I'll hand back to Calvin, and he can talk to you about that a little bit more, and then we'll move on and we'll have some questions at the end that we'll answer.
Thank you, Melinda. This education, nutritional concept is something we're incredibly passionate about. We understand that not everyone's quite as inquisitive as us, but we actually want to start offering out this education to those people that are that way inclined. And so we're going to do monthly webinars with Dr. Mark Roberts leading the charge on those. We did one about 3 weeks ago. It's going to be every month. It's going to be on the first Tuesday of every month. We will be doing a webinar. It's Tuesday American time, not New Zealand time. That's because Mark is actually based in America at the moment. Our next topic is how much to feed your dog and cat. I would say, so all the questions that come through to us from customers, it's myself, Melinda, and my wife Jo see every one of those questions coming through. Probably the number one question that we get asked is, how much do you feed your dog? How much should I feed my dog or cat? I actually got one of those calls this morning from a vet out of Tennessee, believe it or not, wanting to know how much to feed our canned cat food. So it is a very misunderstood area. I'm really looking forward to this topic from Mark. If you want to, anyone is welcome to come and join in that webinar, and just follow us on our Facebook or our Instagram, and we'll show you the link for those webinars. We've got a whole list of them. We've got at least the next month, and then the next year we've got topics coming up. I think Mark said he had 100 topics listed down, so there's more than a year's worth there. As you get to know him, you understand that he does love talking about this stuff, and he's incredibly passionate about it, and he just actually wants to share. So yeah, we're really happy to be able to bring him out for people to witness his knowledge. So yeah, just in conclusion, what we've talked about today, so to make your pet foods bowl healthier, there really is low or minimal need for carbohydrates, and as much as you possibly can, include a high meat-based content, and really protein and fat do go hand in hand. And so when you're looking for the fat content in the food, look for the healthy fats, the ones that have high omega-3s, etc. We firmly believe that grass-fed animals, so the red meats, the cows, the sheep, the deer, have much healthier fat content in it. And I think that researchers you'll see it in time become even more compelling. We do also understand that it's not possible for everyone to feed a completely high meat based diet to their animals. The big benefit of carbohydrates are they're cheaper, and so we do definitely understand that with some people that's not possible, and really people do ask me a lot, what how much should I be feeding? Well, really, as much as you can afford really is the easiest thing that I can answer. And if that's an extra 5% topper of our food, or another high meat based food onto top of your current food, then that's great. So really, I want to push that home a lot to you, that the mixer ideal is a really good idea, and any one of the products that you see in our range is applicable to that. You can easily add the canned food to your standard diet. So yeah, that's conclusion. We'll now go on to some questions that you have. Right, the first one, first two kind of go hand in hand. One, a diet high in fat make my dog fat, and this kind of diet seems okay for an active dog, but my dog is not that active. Surely this type of diet will make my dog fat. That is definitely one of the questions we get asked a lot of. For me, what it comes down to is it's really calories is what makes your dog fat. So if your dog is not that active, they just need less calories, which means they need less food. Doesn't mean that they need less fat in their diet. It's just, it all comes down to calories in my book. And not sure, like for me, one of the best things to work out this concept is when I eat a nice piece of salmon, let's say, I don't actually need that much to feel full, because salmon has a reasonably high fat content in it, and I believe this is the case, that it just triggers in your brain that you say, right, I've had enough, I'm full, right, I've had enough, because I've instinctively got enough calories or enough energy. And whereas it's so easy to overeat when there's a lot of carbohydrates. It's so much easier to do that. So, and then very quickly those carbohydrates disappear, and in an hour's time feel hungry again. So it's actually more regulating the calories is what's important. And I do think you'll find with a high meat based diet, you'll find that your dog's not pestering you in a 1 or 2 hours time for more food. Yeah. Melinda, do you have anything to add on that?
No, I absolutely agree.
Right, yeah, good.
It's much more satiating, filling when you're eating fat part of.
So I'll let you to answer this one, Melinda. Do I need to add water to a freeze-dried food if I'm adding it as a topper?
So I'm a real moisture advocate, but as a topper, I think as long as your pet has access to water When you're feeding a small amount of the topper, that's not necessary to rehydrate that. If you're feeding it as a meal, you can actually feed it, not hydrated as a meal as well, again, as long as there's water available. But we always recommend, obviously, for the ultimate, adding that moisture back in. But I think for myself, my opinion would be as a topper that as long as there's water available to your pet, it should be fine in that amount.
So the next one, I'll do this one. Is the research the same for cats? There hasn't been any research completed on this yet for cats, but we're embarking on that right now. It is our hypothesis, though, that it's even more important for cats than it is for dogs because they are obligate carnivores. So we believe it's even more compelling that they're eating a high meat-based diet, and we think that it's essential for them. Let's see what the research says, but that's what we're expecting it to say.
Yeah.
You could do this one, Melinda. Is there a difference nutritionally between air-dried, canned, gently cooked, frozen raw, and freeze-dried raw?
Yeah, so I sort of touched on that when I talked about the product range. They're all high meat, 93%, apart from the freeze-dried raw, which is a little bit lower because we have those superfoods in there as well. But they're all providing that high meat diet in a different formula. Obviously, the raw is the ultimate without having the heat applied in terms of the nutrients. But the main thing is that they're getting that high meat content. And if your pet has a preference with one type of food over the other, you can know that they're still getting that high meat content regardless.
Yeah, cool. I'll do this one. Is 100% meat diet the ultimate for a dog? Yeah, really interesting question, this one. That you'd assume by going through this research that it possibly is. One of the things that we didn't touch on, though, is fiber and how important fiber is to the diet. They do need a certain amount of fiber to get a quality stool, so either one that's not too hard or one that's not too soft. And we actually found, and Mark and I in our previous company actually found this as a problem, that some of the stools on the dogs that were incredibly hard, and the dog was having trouble passing them. And what we did find is there needed to be more fiber in the diet. Now, naturally, with the fiber, so Mark actually did this research by picking up the stools of wolves and then looking at what was there and found that there was a very high level of animal fiber in that. So in the wild, we think the wolves are probably getting that fiber from the skin or the fur or the feathers, let's say, if they catch a bird, and certainly a cat would be getting it from that, the fiber from that. But typically in a commercial diet, those aren't used. And so there is actually an argument that a little bit of plant-based fiber, like for us, we use flaxseed for our fiber in there. It's more readily available form of fiber that we can use, and that ensures there's a healthy stool. So that's why we actually pretty much cap our meat content at about 93%. We're sort of aiming in that 90 to 93%. We think we need around about 3 or 4% fiber in there, and then the rest of vitamins and minerals. So not 100% meat is not necessarily the ultimate for a dog or a cat, is what my conclusion would be on that. Daniel asks, do you have plans for a freeze-dried food for cats? I'll let you do that one, Melinda.
Oh, we do have plans. We've actually already done it. So yes, that is one of our part of our huge product development we've been doing this year, actually. We've been very busy, and that is one of our new ranges that will be coming out in the new year.
Yeah, Q1 next year. So January, February, March, we're launching in Pet Food Express.
So we've got three flavors for the kitty cats, and the results so far have been very, very encouraging in terms of the palatability. So I think it's going to be very popular.
What kind of food is okay to feed a dog with kidney disease? Your expertise, Melinda, is probably better than mine at this one. They need a low protein, low phosphorus diet. What would you recommend for this? Like, first of all, as a brand, we don't, we'd always refer back to vets, but we could give our opinion, right?
Absolutely. And look, I think, this is a really common one. And this because there's so many animals out there that are suffering with kidney disease. And I've had personal experience with that in the past, which is why I'm very, very passionate about moisture in the diet. And look, it's actually a topic that we will be covering in the webinars with Mark, because there's no easy question, no easy answer to this question. So it is something that we're going to be delving into and looking at all the information around it. There's a bit of a protein debate, to be honest, with the research. It always has been the way that if they've got kidney disease, they can't have protein, they need low phosphorus. Look, and certainly, it comes down to feeding the pet in front of you. I don't think it's a blanket thing that you can just, put on all animals that might have kidney disease. You really need to feed the pet in front of you. So that means working with a health professional, but often, perhaps working with a nutritionist as well, if you're looking at different things. Personally, I think protein is still important, and there is research that supports that. But obviously, it can come down to the source of protein. There is research supporting tripe as being a good option, particularly because it has low phosphorus levels. Making sure that things like the phosphorus levels are bioavailable, so they're not a synthetic form, can make a difference. Moisture. There's a whole heap of different factors come in. So I sort of don't want to pass you off as not giving you a clear answer, but it really is coming down to the individual pet. And there are some different, it's called the protein debate in terms of renal disease, and there are a few different theories bouncing around at the moment. So that is definitely something that we will cover with Mark, and we'll delve into the research. So do keep an eye out for those webinars, and hopefully that will be able to answer that in more depth.
Yep. Looks like we've got one more question. We love Kiwi here. Thank you for that. Is it also popular in New Zealand? So yeah, I can answer this one. So we've made a conscious choice through our brand to concentrate on exporting, and really that's more down to financial viability as a company, just to put it like New Zealand is it's quite a large landmass. It's larger than the state of California by a decent margin, and it's a very long, skinny country and split between two islands, right? Which actually makes it logistically difficult to move product around. And we've only got 5 million people as well, so the market size is not that large. So we haven't really focused that much on growing our brand in New Zealand. It is available. We've decided to make it available on an online platform here to make it available to everyone in New Zealand. But it really, in all honesty, hasn't been developing the brand hasn't been a big focus for us. We're likely to sort of do that. Branch that out over the next 2 years, and make it more readily available as we work out our plans. But to be honest, North America keeps keeping us busy with how well the brand's doing over there. It's kind of odd, but it's a lot easier actually just loading it up into containers and sending it into San Francisco, and where you've got a much larger population. But what I can say is the people that use it here are incredibly passionate about it. We know that because they message us and tell us, and that's one of the things we love. And I think for me, one of the best decisions when we started this brand was on every packaging you need to put a phone number to be able to contact the company, and we made the decision actually to put my cell phone number on the bag. So the number you see on the back of the bag is actually my personal phone. So I get the calls myself. So that's how I know that these people are passionate about it, because they text us or they call us, or they do email us quite a lot as well. So yeah, I think that's all the questions. Anyone else? I'm not missing anyone, I hope.
I don't think so.
Okay, well, we'll sign off there. Yeah, thank you everyone for attending. I hope you enjoyed your weekend with the Bay Area Pet Fair and all those animals that have been rehomed. Yeah, we really enjoy this opportunity to be able to talk to you about something we're very passionate about. So, and also
Absolutely.
thank you very much for the support of Kiwi Kitchens over the last 5 years that we've been selling the brand. So, thank you very much.